This is the first time I ever opened up to anybody. I've kept it bottled up for 20-some years. It's rough. I just wish I could talk about it, hit a light switch, and be done with it. But it's just, that's the light switch don't turn off. There's no explaining how much hate I got for that man. I was 8 years old and I woke my dad up with a snub nose 357. Hammer pulled back, loaded, and he talked me out of it. He talked the gun away from me. I wish I would have pulled that trigger when I was 8 years old. If I would have pulled that trigger when I was 8 years old, none of this would ever happened.
Deputies searched for a body in what they believed was a swampy grave.
I blame myself. I can't stand that bastard. I grew up in a pretty large family. It was 12 of us, 7 boys, 5 girls. I'm the middle child, smack dab in the middle. My father was an ordained minister, and anybody and everybody that wanted a wedding in the community would come to my father. He would marry couples out front in the house. My mom would cook the food, and we're all dressed up, standing out there, while he's performing the service.
Ron, it's a beautiful day for a wedding. God has blessed you.
Thank you.
My father would stand out there when he was performing the weddings just like any other minister. He'd have his white collar on, then he'd read a couple of quotes out of the Bible. He was real religious and real polite. Everybody adored him and loved him.
You may kiss the bride.
I remember when this photo was taken. I looked happy in it. If you really looked, if you could look beyond them photos, it was, there was no smiles. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself, run. One night, we all went to bed. We had school the following morning. I woke up, I heard a noise on our roof. And me and my brother Matthew looked out the window. And there was this beast. It was all in black and tapping on the windows. It was one of the most scariest moments of my life. Woke up my mom and told her, the devil's outside. He's trying to come in our window, trying to get us.
The window!
What?
A monster!
Okay, I'll look.
We pointed at the window, and when we looked at the window, it was gone.
What's this?
The boys thought they saw something out the window.
My father came in, he told us it was Satan that was trying to get in the house.
That was the devil trying to get in here. He's coming for both of you.
But my father told us, as long as we follow what he says and do what he does, it's not going to harm us. We have not a worry in the world as long as we follow what my father tells us to do.
You disobey me, then the devil has every right to come in here and get you.
So me as a kid, I want this creature to come down out of the sky and snatch me, so I can do what my father asked me to do. It came out years later that it was our father looking in the window. My father, he dabbled in cults. Everybody goes to church on Sunday, and we didn't go to church. We didn't go to Sunday schools. He was his own church. One day we were all out in the yard. He walked us over to the rock garden, and there was a statue of Jesus in there. Had his hands out like this. My father had a hatchet, and he swung down at it. My father busted the hands off of Jesus and told us that, God's not going to help you. My father told us, all of us kids, that he was the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end.
I am the only God you will ever know. Now, if you pray to me from now on.
He had all these powers. God speaks through him.
Fear me. Beseech me. Revere me.
And everything he said, everything my father told me, I believed. He's my role model. I love my father. After that incident, everything started getting darker. It was like a whole nother world. That's when things started getting crazy in the house. My father had us all gather in a dining room. There's candles and stuff around, and a pentagram on the table. I seen my father coming down the hallway. He had a black cape on. I'm wondering why he's got this cape on.
Grab each other's hands.
He's reading out this black book. And we're all holding hands in the dining room when he's doing this.
Let my knowledge be my path into the darkness. Sacrifice of bone and blood.
And something was on the table. It was covered. Me being a kid, I really didn't understand what was going on, but when he pulled the piece of material, just the shock of fear went through me. He had our family cat, Misty, was right in the center of the pentagram, and Misty was dead. My father held the cat up and slit its throat and drained its blood into this, it was a chalice. And he passed the chalice around to each of us and had us drink the blood.
Blood for blood.
My heart's racing. It feels like I'm gonna get sick. But everything my father said, we did, we pleased him. He turned the lights back on, he threw the cat away, blew all the candles out, and we went on after that like nothing ever happened. He told us never talk about it, never speak of it.
Not a word of this will sleep from this house, or a sickening punishment will happen.
Dad, I'm sorry. I'm just asking about Glenn.
Shut up!
Just snatches her by the back of her head, slams the door, and then all I heard was her screaming and crying, and it was a full-blown beating. When I was younger, my father had rules in the house.
Now, this is a house of order. When I tell you something, tattoo it on your heart so you don't forget. Understand? You understand?
We couldn't bring friends over to the house. Don't leave the property. Don't talk about what's going on in the house. He didn't allow us to talk to nobody in school.
You go to school and you come home. No delays.
And my father gave all of his boys a quarter And he told me, if you catch your sisters talking to anybody, I want you to call me. That was my father's biggest worry. You know, if the girls are talking to somebody, they're talking about what's going on in the house.
This home is sacred, and everything that happens in it is sacred.
We're like my father's eyes when he wasn't watching them. There was always one of us in their classes, one of us passing them in the hallway. One day I saw my sister talking to her teacher, and it was outside of class. I called my father and I told him Sherry was talking to the teacher. And when we got home...
Dad, I'm sorry. I was just asking about classwork.
Shut your mouth. Get up there. I told you never to talk to anyone.
He snatches her up, throws her down the hallway, takes her into his bedroom, slams the door. Then all I heard was her screaming and crying, and you could hear him yelling. It was a full-blown beating. I felt bad. You know, it was my sister in there. We're supposed to protect them. I thought to myself, why'd I call? You know, why didn't I just let it go? I did it out of fear. If I didn't tell my father that they're talking to other people in school, then it's going to be me in that bedroom. I didn't want that. In my household, it was survival of the fittest.
I can't believe he fell.
He got all over his face.
Me and my brother Willie were walking down the basement. I mean, that was our hangout. And I heard my sister. We're trying to be quiet. And I looked down, seen my father having sex with Pixie. I seen it with my own eyes. And me and Willie, we got scared. And we went back upstairs. And then he came upstairs and he was fixing his pants.
Hi, boys.
And then my sister came up a little while afterwards. From that day forth, my father is constantly having sex with her. There was a lot of incest going on in that house. You know, he's done it to me, and I didn't think it was abnormal, you know, seeing it done to my sister. You know, he'd take us in there and have us perform certain things. How could a man do that to his child? Every time I got abused, I didn't want to live anymore. I prayed to God every day that he'd just take my life. But I didn't want to live. As long as I can remember, we always had little dances, you know, listening to the 50s and the 60s music, all of us kids in the living room. My mom loved dancing. She loved dancing. There was no drama. There was no beatings. It was like we're in a whole different world. And then just one night, everything's going good. We're having fun. And then Pixie came downstairs. She comes walking in the living room. She has a wedding veil on. And my father announces, you know, that he was gonna marry Pixie. She's a young girl, she's 17 years old.
Family, I'm so happy to tell you that I'm marrying Pixie.
It was so quiet you could hear a church mouse fart.
We are gathered here to join in marriage.
My father performed a marriage ceremony, and she's holding his hands and he's holding her hands. And he says the whole wedding spiel, you know, the vows, and had her say some vows.
I vow I will honor and cherish you for all of my life.
My mom was beside herself when they did that. She couldn't look at none of us. She just kept looking at the carpet. She really couldn't step in. If she stepped in, she would just get beat. She was a victim as much as we was. I was so damn confused, it was crazy. You know, I'm thinking, my sister's gonna be my mom. You know, I'm gonna have two moms. I didn't know what to think. I was just a young, ignorant kid.
I will serve you for the rest of my days.
By my powers, we are consecrated in marriage.
But Pixie, she was happy. The most happiest time in her life. She was in love with my father. That's my father. And it's after he, you know, said the vows and everything and put the ring on her finger. He's got the biggest smile on his face. It makes me feel sick. You know, how could a man marry his daughters? This one twisted individual, sick. My father told everybody in the family that Pixie was pregnant by a man that was in the service. And the next thing I know, she's in the hospital having a baby. Then, maybe a year down the line, she was pregnant again. That time, it was a guy from school. But we all know where the kids came from. They were our father's kids. And then the following summer, she's pregnant again, and that's when it got serious. The police came over, we watched them walk through the yard, and my stomach drops. It's gonna get bad. It's gonna get real bad. Yeah, it's Joel. She met him in high school. Joel was a good guy. He was a real good guy. I wish Joel never would have met my sister. If I could reverse time and I could talk to Joel, I would tell Joel to leave. One day I saw my sister pull up and it was her and a guy, and I thought it was kind of odd because no one's allowed at the house.
What's going on?
Hi, Charlie. Joel's my boyfriend.
He told me, he's like, I love your sister. And one day I hope to marry her. And it kind of caught me off guard. I don't know why Joel thought it was his kid.
Pixie, Dad's not...
Dad and Joel are great.
Just want to be a part of this family.
Yeah.
I think Joel was another scheme to cover up my dad having another child with my sister, Pixie.
Good to see you.
She had her first kid, it was like 11th grade, and then she was pregnant again in her senior year. You know, the school started asking questions, and my father told them the same stories he's telling us. He didn't want the truth to get out. One day, me and my brother cut a bicycle tire in half, and we nailed it on each side of my windowsill. And I took a battery and put it in a slingshot, pull it back, and I let it go. And it slung across the fence and hit my neighbor and knocked him down.
Oh, man, he's really hurt. What? Yeah.
And the paramedics showed up. The police came over. We watched them walk through the yard, and my stomach drops. I don't know how my dad talked them out of not arresting me. But then after the police officer left, it was hell to pay.
I told you never to draw attention to our family. You think having the cops show up is some kind of joking matter? You aren't ever gonna forget this again.
And he threw us in a closet like we were luggage. And here was a spray coming up and under the door, and it was Raid. And it started coming into the door, and it started getting hard to breathe. We're in there for hours, it seemed like days. That was one of the most scariest moments of my life. I thought I was gonna die in there. And I don't know if the bug spray or, you know, put me to sleep or if I just went to sleep. But we're in there for one complete night. We started talking about the government's gonna come over here and we're gonna have to fight for our land, protect our family.
Take a weapon.
He started training us how to fight, train us how to kill people, take a man's life with one blow, how to cut a man's throat, how to crush a man's esophagus by punching him. He had us shooting guns. And we became pretty good with the guns, too good. I thought my mission was protect my family, and everybody else is just everybody else. You know, if they came along, I don't care who it was. You know, you come along with a badge and you're coming after my family, you're a dead man. What happened was my sister, Michelle, talked to social services in school.
Mr. Sexton, my name is Diane. I'm from Child Protective Services.
Told them what was going on, you know, what our father was doing to us. And that's when they ordered my father out of the house.
No, you have a mistake.
Well,
I'm not going anywhere.
we have the police here that's going to escort you out.
You're gonna have to go.
They escorted him off the property and told him he was no longer allowed on the property.
After you.
Come on.
He was coming over at the house against their rules.
Dad.
That's it. I'm sick of this.
I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I'm done. I'm not going anywhere. I'm tired of them. They're not taking your kids off me anymore. And he ordered me and my brothers to barricade the house.
Go out back and get some wood. I'm gonna block up all these windows. Go, now!
He had us board up all the lower windows in the house. And then he made the phone call to the Jackson Police Department. And he's cussing at them, calling him everything in a book, telling him, he's not leaving his property.
You come and try to take me out of here, I will leave a trail of bodies from where I am back to my family.
The Jackson Police Department, they evacuated the whole street, had everything blocked off. The instructions my father gave me was 1 shot, 1 kill. Anything moves outside, anything comes close to the house, shoot it. The Jackson Police Department, they evacuated the whole street, had everything blocked off.
Charles, they make a move towards the house, you take them down.
My father said if there's any authority that even remotely gets on the property, shoot to kill. I'd see things move outside, and I'm thinking it's police officers trying to sneak up on us. The standoff lasted for 2 days, and we were scared. And then he gets a phone call from one of the deputies.
Yes.
And then that's when the deputy showed up at the house. My father told me if he dips his head, pull the trigger and take out the deputy. And if he would have dipped his head, I would have took that deputy's life. But the deputy talked my dad down, like had him come outside and surrender. And that was the biggest sigh of relief, like a movie, a happy ending. It was like a whole different life. We were free. And after my father got bonded out, he returned back to the house. He told us the FBI is looking for him, and then he starts talking about, the war. No one's gonna split his family up.
Very good.
We took those weapons and loaded everything up in the motorhome, and everything just went downhill. We're in the campground. The baby was crying, and it irritated my dad. And he told Pixie, shut the baby up or I'm gonna come back there and shut it up. And she put her hand over its mouth, over Skipper's mouth. And Skipper shut up.
What's going on?
I hear a big scream, and she's screaming over the baby, over Skipper, and Skipper's all blue.
Is he?
He's gone.
And I look at Skipper, and my dad told me that he was gone. There's no help for him.
Put him in that. Do it.
So my sister put him in a duffel bag. Put his pacifier in. Wow. Give me a second. My sister Pixie put a pacifier in Skipper's mouth and put a rattle in his hand. And my dad ordered me and my brother Willie to bury him. So we took the baby back in the woods. And we dug a hole. And we put Skipper in the ground. Oh, I can't do it. That's what Skipper was buried in. Yeah, I recognize it all. It's embedded in my memory. It's everything that baby wore when I put him into the ground. This child was real innocent. He was brought into just a crazy, evil family. I mean, there's no words. It's just sick, twisted. I don't even want to really look at it. I don't want their memories. Joel was beside himself.
Joel, calm down. It's okay.
How can I be calm? This is my child. I'm not letting you bury him in the dirt in some bag.
He wanted to go dig the baby back up and drop him off at the police station.
They'll be able to help us.
No, the police can't help.
Joel thought Skipper was his son, but he wasn't. He was my father's. My father. He's mad. He's trying to come up with something else just to shut Joel up.
Charles! Willie.
So he says, you know, I got a plan. And we're all wondering, what's his plan? He's going to replace Skipper. My dad told me that he had a plan, you know, to get another baby. He took me and Willie to Ohio, but I still didn't know what was going on. And then he stops right in front of my brother's house. My father performed a marriage for my brother Eddie. Eddie and his wife left years ago. My father told me to knock on the door. Eddie's going to answer it, and you're going to shoot him. And you're going to take his baby, his youngest son.
When I tell you to do something, you do it. Give me a hand, boy.
He wanted me to take my brother's life and take his youngest son to replace Skipper. And I knock on the door. I'm scared, you know, hands sweating, heart's about to come out of my chest. Thank God he didn't answer the door. If my brother would have answered, I would have put a hole in him. I would have took my brother's life. That's how much control he had on us boys. Whatever he said, we'd do. I don't care what it was. So we go back to Florida, no baby in hand. And that's when he started getting real nervous.
You want him to ruin this family?
No, sir.
My father told me and Willie that we got to get rid of Joel. As if not, he was going to go to the authorities about Skipper.
Take Joel on a walk.
My father ordered Willie to take Joel out in the woods.
Man, let's go for a walk. Come on.
I was supposed to stay at the campground, but I followed him back into the woods. I'm standing behind this tree. I'm hiding, I'm scared to death. And then I heard, man. I heard Joel scream. And that's all he got out was a scream. Willie had the noose around his head, around his neck. My father was standing back and was holding the gun up to my brother. And it told him, finish him or I'm gonna finish you.
Do it!
And Willie's crying, but Willie's doing what Willie was told. And then after Joel was dead, my dad had me go back there and help Willie bury Joel. And that was the end of it. Joel worshiped the ground Pixie walked on. I mean, he loved her to death. He never deserved it. He deserved a happy life. My parents were arrested for abducting us kids, kidnapping, child abuse, child endangerment. I mean, multiple counts of every charge. But no one knew about the deaths of Joel or Skipper. So when I was talking to the state prosecutor, at first, I was scared.
Just tell me what happened.
I don't know if I can do that.
It was like having a bird. This bird's, its whole life is in this cage. And then one day you just let it go.
Little Skipper's dead.
How did that happen?
I told him everything, and Pixie killed the baby, how Willie killed Joel. I told him everything as far back as I can remember. I felt free.
What happened to the baby?
Did you kill that child? What happened to the child?
Did you kill your child?
Did you kill Joel? What happened with Joel? Come on, you can talk to us. What happened? Did you kill him?
My mom got charged with multiple counts of child abuse, fleeing the state of Ohio, aiding a known felon, abduction. I mean, they racked my mom with charges. I've never had anger for my mom. She wasn't an abuser. She did 22 years in prison for absolutely nothing, protecting her kids the best that she could.
Did you know your grandchild was dead?
No, I just found out about all of it today.
Did you know any of this was going on?
Did you know your son-in-law was dead?
No, I didn't know about it today.
Who killed the baby?
Who killed the baby?
I don't know! Come on, man. You're gonna have to talk to my son and my daughter. I don't know.
Did they kill the baby?
I don't know. I'm not saying anything else.
It's the first time I've seen Ellen. I don't know why she didn't tell the truth. I mean, she knew the baby was dead. She knew Joel was dead. That don't make any sense. That's something that's gonna bug me probably for the rest of my life. Why did she say that, I don't know why.
Did you tell your daughter to stop the baby from crying, and did your daughter kill that child?
No, I did not tell my daughter to quit making the baby cry because I didn't even know it was crying that night.
Who killed the baby, Eddie?
No one that I know of.
What happened to the baby?
This lying bastard. I've never seen that video. When I first heard his voice, I got nervous for a second. But I got so much anger for that man, I can't stand him. When my parents first got arrested, I'm out there by myself, and my world was lost. I was 18 years old, and I tried to commit suicide, and it didn't happen. The gun didn't go off. It was loaded, but it didn't go off. That right there told me that God has something out there for me. Maybe it's this interview. You know, this interview. He should have died a brutal death. You know, instead he dies in his sleep.
It starts with a scream that no one hears. A faint echo lost in the dark hills of Sonoma County, Northern California. It's late October, 1998. The night smells of rain and redwood. A two-lane road curves through the vineyards, quiet except for the hum of distant trucks on Highway 101. At 11:47 p.m., a white sedan sits parked on the shoulder, hazard lights flashing weakly in the drizzle. Inside, the driver's door is open. The radio is still playing. But the woman who was driving, 26-year-old Lena Walsh, is gone. By morning, her car is found by a passerby, abandoned but locked from the inside. The keys lie on the passenger seat, her purse untouched, and her cell phone, one of those chunky flip models of the late 90s, still half charged. Police tape goes up. Reporters gather. A missing person case begins, quietly, with no sign of struggle, no witnesses, and no explanation. Lena was a local, born and raised in Santa Rosa. She taught art at a community college and lived alone in a small apartment downtown. Friends describe her as bright, kind, a little shy. Her mother says she loved to paint faces, always faces. She was last seen leaving a friend's engagement party at a wine bar around 10:30 that night. She said she was heading home. She never made it there. Detectives start canvassing the area. It's the late 90s, before cell tower pings, before widespread CCTV. They go door to door, field to field, looking for tire tracks, footprints, anything. A search dog picks up a faint scent leading toward the woods, but loses it at a creek. Rain washes everything away. Days turn into weeks. Flyers spread across the county. Missing, Lena Walsh. Last seen October 24th, 1998. Her face, pale, smiling, becomes part of every grocery store wall and gas station window. Then, in mid-November, a jogger finds something near the trailhead of Shiloh Ranch Regional Park. A single silver earring, bent, embedded in mud. DNA analysis confirms it's Lena's. But nothing else is there. No body, no blood, just that one earring, glittering under gray clouds. The media calls it the wine country vanishing. Police call it frustrating. Leads come and go. A truck driver who saw a woman hitchhiking. A neighbor who heard screams near midnight. A coworker who recalls a strange man loitering around campus. Every tip collapses into nothing. Months later, winter comes, and the case grows cold. Files pile up. Detectives rotate out. The Walsh family holds a memorial without a body. The mother weeps before an empty coffin. No one knows if Lena is dead or simply disappeared. For years, the file sits in storage, one of thousands. Technology moves on. DNA science evolves. But the case remains frozen in 1998. Then, 2 decades later, in the summer of 2020, a retired detective named Mark Hensley is re-examining old cases during the COVID lockdown. He's been part of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department for 30 years and knows the Walsh case by heart. One evening, out of boredom and old guilt, he opens the file again. Inside are yellowed photos. The car, the earring, the dark stretch of road. And tucked at the back, a small plastic bag labeled Trace Sample, Fiber under Fingernail. Back in 1998, the DNA was too degraded to test properly. But now, in 2020, technology can pull a genetic profile from less than a single cell. Hensley calls the state lab in Richmond. Run it again, he says. Use the new system. Weeks pass. Then an email arrives. A full genetic profile has been extracted. They load it into CODIS, the National DNA Database. It doesn't match anyone in the system. No criminal, no relative. But when they upload it to a public genealogy site through the cold case unit, something hits. A partial match. A family tree. At first, it points to a line of relatives living around Santa Rosa. Then, after narrowing down the generations, one name keeps surfacing. Daniel Cross, a local carpenter, now 52. Hensley freezes when he sees the name. Daniel Cross was one of Lena's closest friends in 1998. He was at the engagement party the night she vanished. He was the last person to see her alive. Back then, Daniel was questioned and released. He told police he walked Lena to her car around 10:30, said goodnight, and went home. His alibi checked out. A roommate confirmed he was home by midnight. But the roommate has since died. Hensley digs deeper. Cross still lives in town, runs a small construction business, and volunteers at a youth center. Married, 2 kids. A quiet life. But the DNA says otherwise. When investigators covertly collect a coffee cup from a local diner where Cross stops every morning, the lab runs the comparison. The result returns 3 days later, 99.9998% probability match. The same DNA found under Lena Walsh's fingernail belongs to Daniel Cross. The arrest warrant is signed in August 2020. News breaks before sunrise. California 1998 cold case solved. DNA hit points to victim's close friend. The community is stunned. Neighbors can't believe it. Dan? No way. He helped build half this town. Old friends of Lena are speechless. Reporters swarm his front yard as deputies escort him away in handcuffs, his face blank, his eyes fixed on the ground. Inside the interrogation room, the air feels heavy. Cross insists on his innocence. I didn't hurt Lena, he says. I swear I didn't. He explains again how he walked her to the car, how she hugged him goodnight. He claims he went straight home. If my DNA's there, he mutters. Maybe she scratched me when we hugged. Maybe from a handshake. I don't know. But detectives have heard it all before. They press him harder. You were alone with her. You had a crush. People saw the way you looked at her. Cross denies it. Hours pass. Sweat builds. The camera records every breath. Without a body, the case is still fragile. There's no murder weapon, no confirmed cause of death, just a fingernail scraping from 22 years ago. Still, prosecutors move forward, citing the DNA as a silent witness that never forgets. As the court date nears, the public divides. Some see Cross as a monster who hid in plain sight. Others see him as a scapegoat caught in the gears of modern forensics. The Walsh family, after 2 decades of silence, finally speaks. Her mother's voice shakes as she tells reporters, I just want to know where my daughter is. That question haunts the entire county. Because even after the arrest, Lena's body has never been found. Detectives scour the old park again, digging, scanning with ground-penetrating radar. Nothing. Every shovel of earth brings up only stones and roots. Meanwhile, a strange pattern begins to emerge. Investigators learn that in the months before her disappearance, Lena confided to a friend that someone had been following her car at night. She mentioned getting flowers on her doorstep with no note. She told her mother she felt watched. Police check old records and find anonymous letters sent to Lena's college mailbox. Handwritten, affectionate, unsettling. None were ever linked to a sender. The handwriting is analyzed now, compared to Daniel Cross's from job applications. The slant matches. The pressure, identical. The letters say things like, you belong where I can see you, and you shouldn't walk alone anymore. When confronted with this, Cross says, that's not my handwriting. But his voice falters. Reporters flood the streets. Headlines explode across national outlets. Cold case cracked after 22 years. DNA leads to shocking arrest. Trusted friend accused of teacher's murder. The trial becomes a media circus. True crime podcasts dissect every detail. TV anchors replay the 1998 news footage, showing Lena's smiling photo beside a blurred mugshot of Cross. In court, the defense attacks the DNA collection, arguing contamination, claiming that a single microscopic cell could have transferred accidentally. They say no motive, no body, no proof of death. But the prosecution paints a darker picture, a man obsessed, rejected, and enraged. They play a recording of an old answering machine message recovered from Lena's apartment, timestamped 2 nights before she vanished. A man's voice whispers, "You'll see me soon." Forensic audio analysts say the voice pattern aligns with Daniel Cross. The jury listens in silence. As the trial drags on, the ghost of 1998 hangs over every witness. Friends recount the rain, the party, the last smile they saw. Detectives who worked the original case admit their frustration and guilt. The prosecutor holds up the earring found in the mud and says, this was her last cry for help. Still, Cross never breaks. He stares straight ahead, his hands clasped, his expression unreadable. When the verdict finally comes, it isn't the closure anyone expected. Mistrial. Hung jury. Some believe him, some don't. Outside the courthouse, cameras flash. The mother collapses into her husband's arms, whispering, "Where is she?" That question lingers, louder than the gavel, heavier than the verdict. Because even now, decades later, even with DNA, even with names and faces and trials, Lena Walsh is still missing. And somewhere in the quiet vineyards of Northern California, the rain still falls on the same stretch of road where it all began. A road that keeps its secrets well. The courthouse empties in slow motion. Cameras still flash, microphones thrust forward, the crowd hungry for closure that never came. A mistrial means the system blinks, but doesn't end. Daniel Cross walks out flanked by deputies, his expression hollow. Outside, protesters shout his name. Half cry murderer, half cry innocent. The sky over Santa Rosa burns orange in the late afternoon haze, wildfire smoke drifting in from the north. Everything feels dry, brittle, on the edge of catching fire. Inside her car, Detective Laura Finch sits watching the chaos from across the street. She's the new lead on the cold case unit, the one who took over after Hensley retired. She's been silent through the trial, waiting. She knows mistrial doesn't mean freedom. It means unfinished business. She reopens the file that night. Every page smells of dust and frustration. She spreads the photos across her desk, the car, the earring, the missing posters, the party invitation. There's something there. She feels it, something everyone missed. She stares at the photo of Lena's car again. White sedan, hazard lights flashing, parked neatly on the shoulder. Too neatly. She drives out to the spot on Old Redwood Highway where it was found. 22 years later, the guardrail is new, the vines thicker, but the silence is the same. The sound of crickets, the hum of distant traffic. She stands exactly where the driver's door once opened. The asphalt still bears faint scarring, old oil, old tread marks. She kneels down, runs her hand over the gravel. A single thought keeps circling her mind. Why stop here? The road isn't near her home, nor her usual route. She had to have pulled over for a reason. Someone she knew, someone she trusted. The name echoes again, Daniel Cross. But something doesn't add up. If Cross did it, why risk talking to her in public that night? Why walk her to her car under bright lights, in front of witnesses? And if it was spontaneous, where did he take her? There were no drag marks, no fibers, no blood. The earring was found miles away. That means a vehicle was involved. A second location. Laura calls the evidence lab. She asks for the original vacuum sweepings from the car, bits of dirt, carpet fibers, plant material. It's all archived in cold storage. She requests a reanalysis using modern soil DNA sequencing. Back then, it didn't exist. Now, every patch of earth has its signature. When the report comes back a week later, her heart skips. Among the mix of asphalt residue and oak pollen is a trace of something distinct, soil rich in serpentine rock fragments. That type of mineral exists only in a narrow geological band east of Shiloh Ranch, the same area where Lena's earring was found. It's not proof, but it's a map. Laura drives there at dawn, fog rolling low between the trees. She parks near the old trailhead and walks deep into the woods, following instinct more than direction. The ground crunches under her boots. The park feels unchanged, frozen in its own silence. Half a mile in, she stops. There's a clearing where the trees thin and the soil turns pale green from serpentine. Something about the space feels wrong, open, exposed, forgotten. Her radio crackles, distant voices from dispatch fading in and out. Then she notices it, a faint depression in the ground, barely visible under the brush, the shape of a circle, maybe 3 feet wide. She calls the forensic team. By midday, the clearing is surrounded by yellow tape and quiet urgency. Shovels move carefully, layer by layer. Then, a dull clink, a fragment of bone. Another. Then cloth, disintegrated with time, threads fuse to the soil. The excavation continues until they reveal the outline of a shallow grave. Inside, skeletal remains, curled inward, facing the earth. Dental records confirm it the next morning. Lena Walsh has been found. The news hits like lightning. Remains of 1998 missing woman discovered near Santa Rosa. The town that has tried to forget suddenly remembers everything. Old pain resurfaces. TV trucks crowd the roads again. Daniel Cross is rearrested within hours. The prosecution's case, once fragile, now feels unstoppable. But Laura isn't celebrating. She looks at the grave photos and feels uneasy. The burial was shallow, almost careless, as if someone didn't have time, or didn't know how. Then something stranger emerges. During the autopsy, the medical examiner finds a second trace of foreign DNA on a fragment of fabric near the victim's wrist. It doesn't match Cross. It doesn't match Lena. It belongs to an unidentified male, age estimate late 30s to early 40s at the time of death. Laura stares at the result. For a moment, the certainty cracks open. If Cross did it, why is someone else's DNA there? She meets with Hensley, the retired detective who first reopened the file. They sit in the corner of a diner, the same one where Cross's coffee cup was collected years before. The windows glow with late light. Hensley looks older, heavier, eyes tired but sharp. You think he didn't do it? He asks. I think, Laura says quietly, someone else might have helped him. Or someone else was there. Hensley frowns. He was obsessed with her. Everyone knew that. But yet there were rumors back then. About another man. Who? Her landlord. Hensley says after a long pause. Name was Boyd Mercer. Ran a few properties downtown. Shady guy? Never could pin anything on him. But Lena complained once that he'd been inside her apartment without permission. Claimed he said weird things. We checked him. Nothing came up. He left town in 2000. Died in a car crash in Oregon. Laura writes the name down anyway. Boyd Mercer. Back at the station, she digs through archived rental records, old interviews, maintenance logs. And there it is, Boyd Mercer's signature on a work order dated 3 days before Lena disappeared. He'd been in her building that week, fixing a plumbing leak in her kitchen. The next morning, Laura drives to the coroner's office to retrieve the second DNA sample. She requests a run through the expanded genealogy network. It takes days, then weeks. Finally, a hit. Partial, but significant. It points to a small family line in Oregon. A distant cousin confirms the name, Boyd Mercer. He was there. The revelation shakes everything. If Mercer was at the crime scene, and Cross's DNA was also there, then this wasn't a single act. It was a convergence. 2 men, 1 woman, 1 night lost to time. Laura re-examines Cross's old statements. He said he walked her to the car and left. But maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe Mercer followed her afterward. Maybe Cross showed up later. Maybe neither intended what happened. She plays the evidence video again. The earring found miles from the car. The shallow grave. The missing hour. Every piece begins to shift, reframe, contradict. Then she notices something buried in the background of an old 1998 police photograph, behind the white sedan, faintly visible near the edge of the frame. A second set of tire tracks. She has the image digitally enhanced. The pattern matches an older model Ford pickup, registered in 1998 to one name, Boyd Mercer. The night spirals back into focus. Lena leaves the party. Cross walks her to the car. They talk. Maybe he confesses feelings. Maybe she deflects, awkward but kind. He leaves. She drives off. Then Mercer, who has been following her for weeks, sees her car on the highway. He pulls behind, flashes lights, maybe pretends something's wrong. She recognizes him, her landlord, and pulls over, trusting him. That's why the car was parked neatly. She steps out. The door open, the radio playing. Something happens then, an argument, a panic, a scream lost to the night. Cross, perhaps driving home, sees her car stopped, turns back, finds Mercer there. 2 men, 1 terrified woman. The struggle unfolds fast. And by dawn, she's gone. Laura's chest tightens as the theory forms. It's not proof, but it's a story that fits the silence. She pushes for one more test. She asks the lab to analyze the soil on Lena's shoes. Under a microscope, they find traces of resin, wood shavings, varnish dust, particles used in carpentry. The same materials Daniel Cross worked with daily. He was there too. When Laura confronts Cross in custody, he looks broken. You think I killed her, he whispers, but you don't understand. Then tell me. He stares at the table, his voice low, trembling. I didn't kill her, but I was there. I found her car. Mercer was already with her. He hit her. She fell. I tried to stop him. We fought. He told me I'd go down with him if I called the cops. He made me help bury her. I swear to God, she was already gone. Laura doesn't breathe. The tape recorder hums. He continues, voice breaking. I couldn't live with it. I wanted to tell someone, but everyone moved on. Mercer left town. I thought maybe I could forget. But she never left me. Silence stretches. The confession is messy, incomplete, almost unbelievable, but it's the missing piece. Outside the interview room, Laura stands watching the rain streak across the glass. The storm breaks, thunder rolling through the valley. For 22 years, the truth had been split between two men, one dead, one living in guilt. That night, she drives back to the clearing. The wind cuts through the trees. She kneels by the grave, now sealed, marked with a simple wooden cross. She whispers into the dark, not as a detective, but as someone haunted. "You're home now, Lena." And behind her, the woods stay still, holding their breath, as if finally, the earth itself has exhaled. The confession spreads through the courthouse like smoke. One recording, one trembling voice, and suddenly the story the town thought it knew begins to fracture. By dawn, every newsroom in the Bay Area has the headline queued up. Daniel Cross admits involvement in 1998 killing, claims second man was real killer. The broadcast loops on every channel. His face fills the screen, half in shadow, half in regret. The anchor's tone wavers between outrage and disbelief. 22 years of silence collapse into 10 seconds of tape. Detective Laura Finch stands in front of the evidence board while the storm still rattles the windows of her office. She plays the recording again, headphones pressed tight. Each pause, each swallow, each word scraped raw. "He made me help bury her." She writes the line on the whiteboard, underlining made. Coercion, fear, survival, all possible, none provable. She knows what's coming next. The district attorney calls within the hour. They want the statement formalized, documented, admissible. But Laura hesitates. A confession isn't closure. It's a door opening into another darkness. Outside, the rain clears. The vineyards glisten under morning fog. Reporters wait on the courthouse steps, microphones trembling in the wind. Families of other missing women watch from their living rooms, wondering if their ghosts might surface next. Cross is moved to the county jail's high-security wing. His lawyer files for leniency, arguing duress and fear. The prosecution prepares new charges: manslaughter, obstruction, improper disposal of remains. The public calls it mercy. The Walsh family calls it betrayal. Lena's mother, Margaret, appears on live television that night, clutching a framed photograph of her daughter. "I don't want leniency," she says. "I want truth." Her voice cuts through the broadcast like a blade. Behind her, candlelight flickers from a vigil that hasn't burned in 20 years. Inside his cell, Daniel Cross can't sleep. He counts the seconds between guard patrols, listens to the low hum of fluorescent lights, smells the disinfectant in the air. Every sound becomes a heartbeat, every silence a memory. He keeps seeing the woods, the pale soil, Mercer's hands, Lena's face as she fell. He tells himself it was an accident, that he tried to stop it. But the memory doesn't care. It replays anyway. He dreams of dirt pressing against his palms, of whispers that never end. Meanwhile, Laura keeps digging. Something about Mercer's timeline still feels wrong. The Oregon crash that supposedly killed him in 2000, no photos, no autopsy, just a burned-out vehicle registered in his name. She requests the accident file from the Oregon State Police. Days later, a thick envelope arrives, edges brittle with dust. Inside are black and white photographs, a twisted pickup, license plate melted, no body recovered. The official report lists presumed deceased. Presumed, not confirmed. Laura's pulse spikes. She checks interstate records. No death certificate, no dental confirmation. Just assumption. Mercer could have vanished, started over, left Daniel to rot in guilt. She drives north, alone, tracing the route Mercer supposedly took. The I-5 corridor through redwoods and fog. At a gas station near Grants Pass, she asks about old accidents. The clerk shrugs. "Couple wrecks that year," he says. "One guy walked away, never came back." That night, in a cheap motel room, Laura spreads the evidence across the bedspread. The map, the crash site, the soil samples. She stares at Mercer's faded mug shot, square jaw, eyes that never smiled. If he survived, where did he go? Back in Santa Rosa, Cross requests another interview. He looks thinner, his hands trembling around a paper cup of water. He's not dead, he whispers. "Mercer, I saw him." Laura freezes. "When?" "2 years ago. In Eureka." At a lumberyard. I thought I was seeing things. He looked older, beard, glasses, but it was him. He saw me, smiled, drove away. She leans forward. Why didn't you tell anyone? Cross laughs hollow. Who would believe me? The ghost of the man I buried? They'd think I'd lost my mind. The words echo through the concrete walls. Laura files a nationwide bolo. Be on the lookout for Boyd Mercer, alias unknown, presumed alive. She sends the DNA profile to federal databases. Weeks pass. Nothing. Then, in early 2021, a routine background check in northern Nevada flags a match. A construction contractor named Eli Boyd arrested for a bar fight. Fingerprints incomplete, but the partial DNA from a discarded cigarette lines up, 85% match to Mercer's family line. Laura drives through the desert that night, the radio whispering old 90s pop songs drowned by static. She reaches the Reno Police Department at dawn. They've already released him. Minor charge, small fine, gone before sunrise. But security footage catches a glimpse. A man with weathered skin, gray beard, the same eyes from the 1998 file. She feels the air leave her lungs. Mercer's alive. She alerts California authorities, but jurisdictional lines slow everything down. Paperwork tangles, warrants crawl. By the time the federal order clears, the man has vanished again. Back home, the tension grips the town. News spreads fast. Possible second suspect in 1998 California cold case alive, fugitive at large. Reporters camp outside the sheriff's office. Commentators debate the meaning of justice after 2 decades. The phrase ghost killer trends online. Margaret Walsh stops answering calls. She locks her doors, draws the blinds. Closure, it seems, is a mirage that recedes the closer you get. Inside the jail, Cross hears the rumor. When Laura visits, he looks both relieved and terrified. You'll find him, he says quietly. But when you do, don't talk to him. He talks like he can read your thoughts. Laura almost smiles. He's flesh and blood, Daniel. Not a ghost. Cross shakes his head. You'll see. Days turn to weeks. Leads scatter like dust. Then, one morning in late March, a call comes from a remote mountain town outside Redding. A hiker found an abandoned cabin, recently occupied. Inside, tools, canned food, and a wall covered in newspaper clippings about the Walsh case. In the center, Lena's missing poster, yellowed and taped like a shrine. Laura drives up the winding road with a tactical team. The cabin smells of pine and rot. Dust motes drift through broken sunlight. She steps inside and stops cold. On the table, an unfinished letter written in shaky hand. You can't bury something that never stopped breathing. The signature reads simply, B. Mercer. But there's more. Underneath the paper, a small cassette tape. No label. They bag it, tag it, bring it to the lab. When the tape plays, the room goes still. The voice is male, raspy, deliberate. If you're hearing this, then they found her. I didn't mean for it to happen. She fought me. Daniel showed up, tried to be the hero. He's not innocent, but neither am I. I left because ghosts talk louder than cops. I see her everywhere. A long pause, breath trembling. You think you can solve it now? You can't, because she's still out there. And so am I. The tape ends with static and a faint laugh. Forensics date the cassette to within 6 months. Mercer was alive, recently, maybe still is. The FBI joins the case. Federal marshals comb through old land records, bank accounts, vehicle registrations. Mercer has erased himself perfectly, but guilt leaves fingerprints deeper than skin. In late April, a tip surfaces from a truck stop near the Nevada-California border. A man matching his description bought gas with cash, asked for directions south. Surveillance captures the truck's plate, faded Oregon tags. Laura and a task force pursue the lead through the Sierra foothills. Every mile feels like rewinding a nightmare. They track the signal from highway cameras until it disappears near an abandoned mining town called Dry Creek. By the time they arrive, night has fallen. The place looks fossilized, wooden storefronts collapsing, rusted signs creaking in the wind. Their flashlights sweep across boarded windows, dust spirals, echoes. Then a sound. Footsteps inside the old general store. Guns raised, they breach the door. Dust explodes. A figure stands in the dark, hands lifted, light catching the glint of steel-gray hair. It's him. Boyd Mercer, Laura says, voice steady. You're under arrest. He smiles faintly. You finally dug deep enough. They cuff him, Red writes, escort him into the night. He doesn't resist, doesn't speak again until the drive back. In the SUV's rear seat, he watches the mountains blur past and murmurs, almost to himself, "She still talks to me, you know." In the wind. No one answers. Back in Santa Rosa, the booking process feels surreal. 23 years after Lena Walsh disappeared, both men tied to her death now sit behind bars. The case that haunted a generation seems finished. But Laura can't shake the feeling that something inside Mercer's calm is off, like a missing heartbeat. During interrogation, he refuses counsel. "I'll tell my story," he says, "but you won't like it." The camera blinks red. He leans forward, eyes steady. "Daniel didn't kill her. I didn't either, not really. We both tried to control what we couldn't keep. She hit her head when she fell. I panicked. He panicked. We buried her, thinking it was mercy. You can't imagine the silence that follows a shovel." He pauses, breath shuddering. "But here's what you don't know. She was still breathing when we left." Laura's stomach twists. "You're lying." "Am I?" he says softly. "Check the autopsy again. Soil in the lungs. She was alive when we covered her." The room freezes. The truth, after all these years, still finds new ways to hurt. Outside, dawn rises pale over the vineyards. Reporters wait, notebooks trembling, ready to brand the story one last time. Cold case finally solved. Justice after 23 years. But inside the precinct, Laura knows better. Justice isn't a headline. It's the quiet between confessions, the space where truth keeps shifting like mist over the valley. She walks out onto the steps, breath fogging in the cold. Somewhere in the hills beyond, a wind moves through the redwoods, carrying with it the faint echo of a voice that once screamed and was never heard. The case is solved. And yet, nothing feels over. The word solved hangs over the town like a lie. On TV, anchors say it with bright certainty, a graphic spinning behind them. A 23-year mystery cracked, a California cold case finally closed. But the detail that leaks from the autopsy, soil packed into Lena Walsh's lungs, turns that tidy ending into something brutal. It isn't just that she died. It's that she died under the ground, breathing dirt. Outside the Sonoma County Courthouse, the crowd presses against metal barricades. Candles, cardboard signs, camera crews. Someone buried her alive. Justice for Lena. The air smells of coffee and exhaust, of anger that's been aging for decades. Detective Laura Finch watches from an upstairs window, palm on the glass. Her desk behind her is buried in paper. In the center lies the new autopsy sheet, one line underlined in red. Soil within lower airways consistent with active respiration at time of burial. She's read it until the letters blur. It no longer sounds like a clinical finding. It sounds like an accusation. Across the hall, in interview room 2, Daniel Cross sits shackled to the floor, elbows on the metal table, eyes locked on his reflection in the one-way glass. He knows that line now too. Soil in the lungs. Breathing underground. Laura steps inside, closes the door, and sits opposite him. The recorder between them glows red. "They re-examined the lungs," she says. "Mercer wasn't lying. She was alive when you buried her." Daniel's jaw tightens. "You want me to say I killed her?" he mutters. "I want you to stop editing the truth," she replies. "Start from when you saw her car. No shortcuts." At first he just stares at the table. Then his shoulders sag, and the words come, scraped raw. He talks about walking Lena to the white sedan outside the wine bar, about watching her pull away and realizing he couldn't stand the thought of going home like nothing had happened. He followed her at a distance along Old Redwood Highway, headlights low, telling himself he only wanted to talk. He describes the flash of hazard lights ahead, her car already on the shoulder, another truck behind it. For 1 second he thought she'd broken down. Then he saw her by the guardrail, and Boyd Mercer standing too close. She said, "No." I said no. "Boyd," Daniel whispers. I heard it from the road. He pulled over, went towards them, heart hammering. Voices overlapped. Lena telling Mercer to back off. Mercer claiming he was just checking on his tenant. Hands grabbed arms. Daniel shoved Mercer away. Lena stepped back on wet gravel, slipped, went down. The sound of her head hitting rock is something he will never stop hearing. "We thought she was dead," he says. "She wasn't moving. I didn't feel a pulse." He kept saying it was my fault, that they'd blame me, that the only way out was to move her, just for now. You loaded her into his truck, Laura says. I told myself she was gone, Daniel answers. That what we did next didn't matter. He tells her about the drive to Shiloh Ranch, about the shallow hole in pale green soil, the blanket that smelled like oil, the weight of Lena in his arms. He tells her he waited for any sign, a twitch, a breath, a sound, that would let him stop. I didn't hear anything, he says. So I kept going. The lungs say she was breathing. Laura replies quietly. Maybe faint. Maybe you didn't want to hear it. But she was alive when the dirt went in. He flinches. Then I killed her, he whispers. Is that what you needed me to say? It's what the record needs, Laura says. You owe her the whole story. At the other end of the hallway, Boyd Mercer gives his own version to the district attorney and a federal prosecutor. No tears. No pauses. His story matches Daniel's in the big strokes and shifts in the details. She fell, Mercer says. He rushed me. She slipped, hit her head. We thought she was dead. We panicked. The victim was buried alive, the prosecutor counters. That's not panic. That's a decision. Mercer shrugs. Decision, panic. She's still gone. Word of the soil and the two confessions leaks out in fragments. Talk radio callers argue about fear and responsibility, about what they would have done in a dark clearing with a still body and a man saying the cops will never believe you. Social feeds fill with diagrams of lungs and suffocation timelines. True crime shows splice new footage into their specials and rename the story The Wine Country Burial, The Friend, and The Landlord. The core never changes. Cold case solved. In a small house on a quiet street, Margaret Walsh turns the TV off. She doesn't need to hear strangers narrate her daughter's last minutes. The manila envelope Laura left lies unopened on the table, heavy with reports and photographs. When Laura visits, Margaret's eyes look older. Are they saying it's over now? She asks. On the news? Yes, Laura says. In court, we're moving toward trial. There'll be a verdict. And for you? Margaret presses. For me, Laura answers, cases don't end. They just stop changing. Margaret nods slowly. They left her, she says. 2 men. They could have called an ambulance. They could have dug her up. They didn't. That's all this is to me. Not what they meant. Just that they walked away while she was still breathing. Pre-trial hearings pack the courthouse. Signs are banned inside, but outside they wave. Buried alive equals murder and owed deals. Daniel keeps his eyes down when he's let in. Mercer scans the room as if measuring it. For a moment his gaze locks with Margaret's. She doesn't look away. He does. Lawyers fight over what the jury will be allowed to hear. The cabin papered in clippings, the cassette where Mercer talks about ghosts and soil, the genealogical DNA search, the autopsy detail that rewrote Lena's last minutes. The defense calls half of it prejudicial. The prosecution calls it the truth with the lights on. On a gray evening between hearings, Laura drives to Shiloh Ranch alone. The clearing where they found Lena looks ordinary now. The ground has been filled and leveled. Thin grass pushes through the scar. You're not just evidence, she says into the trees. I can't change what they did. I can only keep it from getting prettier in the retelling. By autumn, the trial begins. The old headline reappears on every screen. California, 1998 cold case solved. DNA hit points 2 victims' close friend. Now there's a second line. And to the landlord who buried her alive. Inside the courthouse, fluorescent lights buzz. The jury files in. The prosecutor's opening is simple. A teacher leaves a party in 1998. Her car is found on the side of a dark road. 2 men who knew her make a chain of choices that ends in a shallow grave. For 23 years, the truth hides in soil and bone and guilt. Laura takes the stand on the second day. She swears in, sits, and walks the jury through the investigation. The cold case review, the DNA under the fingernail, the soil from the car, the search that uncovered the grave, the second profile that pointed to Mercer, the cabin, the tape, the arrest. And when you learn there was soil in Ms. Walsh's lungs, the prosecutor asks, what did that mean to you as the lead investigator? It meant, Laura says slowly, that for a short time under that ground, there was still a chance to save her. And that chance was buried with her. Objection, the defense snaps. Speculation. Sustained, the judge says. Jury will disregard the last sentence. They don't. Laura can see it in their faces. Later, The pathologist testifies. Slides of lung tissue appear on a screen, pale shapes, dark flecks of dirt. In plain language, the doctor says, this pattern means the victim inhaled soil after it covered her face. She took more than one breath. A low sound ripples through the gallery. The judge's gavel cracks. That night, Laura sits alone in her office. The TV in the corner is muted, the graphics spinning. Cold case solved. The word glows in colors that don't belong to this story. She turns the screen off and listens to the building's low hum. Outside, the vineyards lie dark, the highway a distant whisper. Somewhere beyond the town, that same stretch of road curves past the spot where a white sedan once sat with its hazard lights blinking into the night like two small, desperate beacons, asking a question that finally has an answer on paper and still feels, to everyone who knows it, unbearably unresolved. Morning comes dressed like any other day, but inside the courthouse it feels like something is about to snap. Jurors file in with paper cups of coffee and guarded faces. Lawyers shuffle stacks of notes, adjust ties, smooth skirts. The judge takes the bench, robe hanging heavy, voice flat as he calls the case back to order. Outside, the media trucks are already lined along the curb, satellite dishes reaching into a sky the color of old newsprint. The bailiff's call echoes off the high ceiling. All rise. Sit. The machinery clicks into motion. It's the defense's turn. They call Daniel Cross. Chains clink as he's led to the stand. Up close, he looks thinner than the mugshot, older than his years, like someone time has been grinding down grain by grain. He raises his right hand, swears to tell the truth. The jury watches his fingers shake. His lawyer, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice built for cutting through noise, steps closer. Mr. Cross, she begins, do you remember the first time you met Lena Walsh? His answer is barely above a whisper. Community college. Fall 96. She was teaching a figure drawing class. I was installing shelving in one of the studios. She tried to help me carry lumber. Almost dropped it on her foot. Soft, uneasy laughter in the gallery. The judge frowns. The sound dies. What was your relationship with her? We were friends, he says. I wanted more. She knew that. She didn't feel the same. I tried to accept it. You loved her, the lawyer says, not as a question. He swallows. Yeah, I did. The defense lets the room hold that for a moment. The jurors see not just a defendant, but a man who once made bad jokes in an art classroom, who stood in a doorway watching a woman paint, who walked her to her car outside a wine bar, and thought he had all the time in the world left to figure things out. They move slowly, building the image of someone awkward, infatuated, weak, but not cruel. Take us back to the night of October 24th, 1998, the lawyer says. From the party. He repeats the story he's told a dozen times, but this time every syllable is weighed like evidence. The dim lights of the bar, the music too loud, the clink of glasses. Lena laughing with friends, threads of conversation about wedding plans and student projects. Mercer at the back of the room, hovering near the exit. I didn't even know he'd come, Daniel says. He wasn't part of her circle. He said he was just there for a drink. Did Lena seem comfortable with him? He hesitates. No. She was polite, but stiff. She kept edging closer to other people when he came near. Did she say anything to you about him that night? She said, he needs to stop showing up everywhere. I asked if he was bothering her. She said she could handle it. She always said she could handle it. He tells them about walking her to the car, the way she hugged him quickly, like she was already half in motion. The headlights swinging out of the lot. His own truck pulling onto the highway minutes later. The hazard flash up ahead. And then, his lawyer presses. He describes seeing Mercer's pickup behind her car. The arguing figures by the guardrail. How his stomach dropped. I wasn't thinking like a hero, he says. I was thinking like a jealous idiot. I thought he'd followed her, that he couldn't take a hint. I just wanted him away from her. But the words weren't calm. He admits he yelled. Shoved. Sees again the way Lena's heels slid on wet gravel. How her head struck stone with a sound that emptied the world. You believe she was dead, the lawyer says. Yes. And in that moment, what did Mr. Mercer tell you? That they blame me, Daniel answers. He said I pushed her. Said my fingerprints were on her, my DNA under her nails, that he'd call the cops and say I snapped. And did you believe him? He looks at the jury, eyes shining with a dull, exhausted kind of shame. I did. I panicked. I let him make the next choice. The defense leans into that word again, panic. Multiple times. They paint a picture of a man whose cowardice killed, not his intent. A man who should be punished, they say, but not as a cold-blooded murderer. Then the prosecutor stands, and the warmth drains out of the room. Mr. Cross, she says, voice cool. You keep saying you thought she was dead, but you helped bury her. You moved her, carried her, covered her face with dirt. At no point did you think, maybe I should check again. His shoulders curl in. I checked. I swear. I put my ear near her mouth. I didn't feel anything. The medical examiner says she was breathing. The prosecutor fires back. Are you saying the doctor is wrong? He can't say it. The silence that follows is answer enough. She steps closer, eyes locked on him. The difference between an accident and murder is what you do after the accident. You made a choice, Mr. Cross. You left her under that ground. He doesn't cry. He just stares at his hands, cuffs glittering under white fluorescent light. Outside, someone snaps a photo through the courthouse window. Daniel on the stand, head bowed, a blurred microphone in the foreground. The image explodes online before lunch. True crime accounts overlay text. He left her there. Podcasts start drafting new episodes before the day's recess. While the online world chews on the testimony, Detective Laura Finch sits in a quiet corner of the building with a file that isn't supposed to matter anymore. It's thin, for pages. A report from 1999 about a missing waitress from a bar 2 towns over. Last seen getting into a truck similar to Mercer's. No body. Case unfounded. But there's a note in the margin in someone's scrawl. Talked to landlord from Santa Rosa. Said he used to live near her. Just a coincidence? Laura runs her finger over the ink. The handwriting belongs to Hensley. The retired detective never mentioned it. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he didn't want to contaminate what he'd finally managed to drag into the light. She walks back into the main squad room, throws the waitress's file onto her already crowded board. Photos shift, lines of red string pull taut. Mercer at the center now, anchored by more than Lena. Work hours are over for this case until the verdict. Finch, one of the captains, says from his doorway. DA's orders. No new rabbit holes. This isn't a rabbit hole, she replies without turning. It's pattern. He didn't just wake up one day and bury a woman alive. You don't start there. The captain sighs, rubs his temples. One thing at a time. We've got 2 men on trial for 1 victim. If you start suggesting multiple victims to a jury, you're going to blow the whole thing apart. She almost laughs. The whole thing was blown apart the second we found soil and lungs. I'm not trying to help the jury. I'm trying to understand what she walked into that night. The captain doesn't argue. He just closes his door. Back in court, they call Boyd Mercer. He walks to the stand without chains, hands free, polite in a borrowed suit. His beard is trimmed. His hair, though gray, is neatly combed. To anyone who doesn't know his history, he could be a small-town contractor called to testify about a property line. He raises his hand, swears the same oath, sits. The prosecutor goes first. Mr. Mercer, she says, you've heard Mr. Cross's testimony. Do you agree with his description of what happened the night of October 24th, 1998? For the most part, he answers, voice smooth. We were all not our best selves that night. Do you deny following Ms. Walsh from the party? A small pause, then a shrug. I didn't follow her. I left around the same time. The road out there, there's really only the one way home. I saw her hazard lights. I pulled over. That's it. And you just happened, the prosecutor says, to be standing close enough that witnesses saw an argument. He smiles faintly at the jury. You know how it is when someone insists nothing's wrong. I was trying to help. She didn't want it to look like she'd broken down. I got too pushy, she got annoyed. We were talking with our hands, that's all. The jurors watch him closely. His charm is thin and stretched over words that don't quite fit. She walks him through the timeline. The party, the roadside, the fall, the grave, the tape in the cabin. On that tape, you said, you think you can solve it now? You can't. What did you mean by that? He shrugs again. I was drunk. Alone. Talking to myself. Maybe I meant you can't undo it. You can't make it right. I wasn't thinking about lawyers breaking down every word. And yet you took the time to cover the walls of your cabin with clippings about Ms. Walsh's disappearance. He shifts in his chair. Guilt, I guess. Or obsession. Call it what you want. People build shrines to what haunts them. Is that why, she asks, you left her in that grave when she was still breathing? The room holds its breath. He leans forward, voice dropping. We both thought she was gone. When I realized she might not have been, it was too late. He glances toward Daniel. That's on both of us. The prosecutor presses, but he refuses to move from the muddy ground where they share the blame and blur the edges. When the defense finally approaches, everything sharpens. Mr. Mercer, Daniel's lawyer says, you're very good at sounding reasonable, aren't you? He shows his palms. My mother would have said so. And yet you followed your tenant from bar to bar, appeared at her workplace uninvited, entered her apartment under the pretext of repairs she didn't request. Is that reasonable? His smile thins. I was a landlord. I checked on my properties. She flips through papers. Maintenance logs, complaint forms, notes of late-night calls. Multiple tenants described you as creepy, too familiar, always hanging around. You see a pattern there? People exaggerate, he says, especially after the fact. She steps closer. Did you ever threaten Ms. Walsh? No. Did you ever tell her she belonged where you could see her? He blinks. No. The lawyer nods to the bailiff. An enlarged copy of one of the anonymous letters appears on the projector. The phrase stands out in thick ink. A handwriting analyst has already testified. High probability it matches Mercer's. You wrote these letters, she says. You say you were just trying to help at the roadside, but you spent months laying groundwork for control. And when she said no, you said the road would be the last place she walked alone. Were those words just drunk, lonely rambling too? Mercer's jaw tightens for the first time. The mask slips a millimeter, and in that crack the jury sees not a well-meaning landlord, but a man who spent years practicing how to make his worst impulses sound like misunderstandings. In the afternoon recess, Laura stands in the hallway and watches people stream out with nervous energy. Some clutch notebooks. Some wipe their eyes. A few argue quietly near the vending machines, already taking sides. One of the older jurors glances her way without meaning to. There's something in his eyes that wasn't there on the first day. A recognition that cold case solved doesn't mean the story is simple. It means every choice is about to be weighed in front of strangers who weren't there. Her phone buzzes. A message from Hensley. Found something you should see. Not in the official file. In my garage. Old box. Call me. She looks back at the courtroom doors, then at the message. For a second she feels suspended between two timelines. The one playing out in front of cameras, and the one still buried in someone's memory, in a garage, in a box that smells like dust and regret. The bailiff calls everyone back in. She pockets her phone. The trial grinds on. Outside, under a gray California sky that's seen this town age 23 years since the night a white sedan sat alone with its hazard lights blinking, another crowd gathers around a screen in a bar, in a diner, in a living room. They watch the crawl at the bottom of the broadcast. California 1998 cold case solved. 2 men face jury over buried alive killing. Solved, the word repeats, bright and polished. Inside, in every pause, in every breath that catches in a witness's throat, it doesn't sound solved at all. It sounds like a verdict the world has decided on before the jury has the chance to speak. By the third week, the trial settles into a strange kind of rhythm, like a heartbeat that keeps skipping at the same place. Experts in careful suits take the stand and talk in slow, precise voices about probability, alleles, databases. The genealogy specialist explains how a fragment of DNA in a fingernail scraped 23 years ago blossomed into a family tree in 2020. The jurors listen hard, leaning in as if the science might slip away if they blink. The screens fill with charts and ladders, with lines connecting strangers to a single, labeled unknown male, later named, finally, as Daniel Cross. Soon after, another slide appears. A second strand. Unknown male too. The one that leads to the landlord who said he was just trying to help on the side of a dark road. The prosecutor turns that double helix into a story. 2 men entwined, 1 night, 1 grave. The defense tries to turn it back into numbers, probabilities, databases. You can't know exactly when the DNA was transferred. But the jury has already seen the grave. They've heard about the lungs. Numbers don't feel like enough anymore. During a recess, Laura leans against the cool marble of a hallway pillar and finally calls Hensley back. He answers on the first ring. You got my message. What's in the box? She asks. A pause. Paper rustling. Stuff I shouldn't have kept at home, he says. Stuff the case file doesn't have anymore. Come by after court. Bring an open mind. She almost asks why he didn't turn it over before. But she already knows the answer. Sometimes it's easier to live with ghosts if you control which ones get out. That afternoon, the state rests its case. They've shown the jury the car, the letters, the cabin walls, the tape, the grave. They've walked them through the argument on the roadside, the fall, the frantic choices that followed. They've played the recording where Mercer said you can't bury something that never stopped breathing, and the one where he said she was still breathing when the dirt went in. They've given the jurors a narrative and handed them the weight of deciding what to call it. The defense announces it will call 2 more witnesses and then rest as well. The end is suddenly visible, like the coastline through fog. The judge sets dates for closings, for instructions. Jury deliberations are no longer a distant concept. They're an appointment on the calendar. In the fading light, after court adjourns, Laura drives to Hensley's house. It's a low, tired ranch on the edge of town, paint peeling in spots, lawn a little overgrown. The garage door is already open. Hensley stands inside surrounded by stacked boxes, the life of a detective packed into cardboard. Labels and marker, years scribbled in the corner, dust on everything. He waves her in. Thanks for coming. Should I be worried we're about to blow up the entire trial? She asks. He gives a small, humorless smile. You asked what I might have missed. I found something that proves I missed more than I ever admitted. He pulls one box from the pile, sets it on a workbench. The ink on the side reads Walsh, personal notes. He cuts the tape, opens the lid. Inside are loose pages, old spiral notebooks, photos with sticky backs, a small cassette tape in a cracked plastic case. This is your handwriting, Laura says, picking up a notebook. Yeah, he says quietly. Stuff I wrote down before transferring the official version to the file. A lot never made it over. We were drowning in cases back then, and some things I didn't know where to put. He flips open a notebook to a page dated November 1st, 1998. In his tight scrawl, call from female, claims she saw a white sedan plus dark truck on Old Redwood wine night of October 24th. Heard woman shout, "Get off me." Saw one man shove another. License partial. 3GH, possibly 3GH2. She didn't want to give her name. Said boyfriend would be mad I talked. Laura reads it twice. This isn't in the file, she says. I know, he answers. That's the problem. What did you do with it? Logged it as anonymous. Drove the stretch again. Nothing there by then. A week had passed. We were getting crank calls, psychics, you name it. Boss told me to focus on interviews, not ghost cars. I let it drift. The paper never made it to the official log. He reaches into the box again, pulls out the cassette. This is worse, he says. She turns it over. The label is hand-lettered in blue ink. 911. Highway Scream. October 24th, 98, 23:52. How do you have a 911 recording? She asks. Back then, Dispatch sometimes made extra copies for working detectives. I stuck it in this box meaning to bring it back. It ended up under Christmas decorations for 20 years. He slides an old tape player onto the bench, blows dust from it, clicks the cassette in. He presses play. Static first. Then a woman's voice, thin with adrenaline. Hello? I'd like to report something. I'm on Old Redwood near the Shiloh turnoff. There's a car pulled over, a white, I think it's a Honda, and there's a man, maybe 2 men, and a woman, and she's yelling. I heard stop or get off. I don't know, but it sounded bad. The dispatcher asks for location, details. The caller repeats Shiloh turnoff twice, stumbling over her words. I don't want to get too close, she says. My boyfriend says keep driving, but it doesn't look right. A male voice in the background. Hang up. We're going to be late. The dispatcher tries to pin her down. She gives the partial plate. 3GH, maybe a 2 next? I don't know, it's dark. The call cuts off abruptly. End of tape. Laura stares at the player long after the wheels stop turning. You turned this in? She asks. I turned in the other copy, he says. The one dispatch kept. When the car was found the next morning, the focus shifted there. The road. The park. I told myself the call was probably just kids arguing. A fight that ended in slammed doors, not graves. I compartmentalized. Then the case went cold, and this tape stayed in my garage because throwing it away felt like an admission. An admission of what? Laura asks. though she already feels it in her chest. That we could have been there, he says. That we were 20 minutes and one decision away from saving her. The silence that follows is heavy. The only sound is a drip somewhere, the faint whir of a refrigerator in the corner. If we bring this in now, Laura says slowly, the defense will argue misconduct, withholding evidence. They could move for a mistrial. I know, Hensley says, but you asked for the truth. This is part of it. It's ugly. It puts some of the guilt on us, not just them. She picks up the tape, the plastic warm under her fingers from the machine. Do you want me to bury it again? He asks. She looks up at him. He looks smaller than she remembers, but his eyes are clear. No, she says. That's what got us here. I'll take it to the DA. Let them decide how hard they want to get hit. That night, in a conference room that smells of stale coffee and fluorescent fatigue, the district attorney plays the tape 3 times. Each time, the room feels tighter. Jesus, one of the assistants mutters. If the media gets this, we'll be crucified. They'll get it, Laura says. The question is whether they hear it now or in an appeal hearing 5 years from now when Cross's lawyer uses it to tear us apart. The DA rubs her face. You understand what this could do to the case. It doesn't change what they did, Laura says quietly. It just shows they weren't the only ones who failed her. In the end, the DA does what the law and her conscience both demand. She calls an emergency in-chambers meeting with the judge and both defense teams. The tape is disclosed as late evidence. The judge's expression hardens as the recording plays in the hush of his private courtroom. Just him, 2 prosecutors, 2 defense attorneys, and Laura sitting rigid in the back. When it's over, no one speaks for a moment. Detective, the judge says finally, why is this coming to light now? Because it was in a retired detective's personal box, she answers. He just found it. He's prepared to testify to that, and to his mistake in not logging it properly in 1998. The defense pounces. Mistake, Mercer's lawyer says. Your Honor, this is a wholesale failure to disclose potentially exculpatory evidence. For 23 years. That goes to the heart of due process. We move for a mistrial immediately. Daniel's attorney nods. We join. This tape shows a second vehicle, a second man, at a time when Ms. Walsh was still alive. The jury never heard it. The state built their story without it. The integrity of these proceedings is compromised. The DA stands, voice tight. The tape doesn't exculpate either defendant. It confirms what we already know. There were 2 men there. It supports the narrative, not undercuts it. The failure to log it is serious, but it doesn't change the core facts. The judge steeples his fingers, eyes closed for a moment as if listening to some internal argument. The jury hasn't heard about this yet, he says. That cuts both ways. I can exclude it to preserve the current record, or I can allow it in with an instruction and let them weigh it. But that opens us to appeal. Or I can grant a mistrial and make this town live through all of it again in a year. He looks at Laura, not as a detective, but as the person who dragged the tape into the light. If I ask you, he says, whether justice is better served by starting over or pushing through with a compromised but complete picture, what do you say? Her mouth is dry. She thinks of Margaret, of the jurors, of the white sedan on the shoulder in 1998, hazard lights blinking into the void while a stranger's call hung unanswered in the dispatch queue. I think, she says slowly, justice doesn't care how tired we are. It cares whether the truth is on the record. Either way, someone's going to say you chose wrong. The judge exhales through his nose, a sound like a distant crack of thunder. I'll take the motions under advisement, he says. We reconvene in the morning. Until then, no one speaks of this outside this room. Not to the press, not to your clients, not to your neighbors. Understood. Heads nod. Laura leaves the courthouse under a sky streaked with thin clouds, the air cool and sharp. Across the street, cameras wait, hungry for statements. She keeps her eyes on the pavement, walks past them, says nothing. In the jail, news of the closed-door meeting trickles to Daniel and Mercer as a rumor. The judge might throw the whole thing out, start again, let them age a few more years in limbo. Neither knows why. Neither knows about the tape that caught the sound of a woman doing the right thing from a moving car and a system that wasn't listening hard enough. In a dark living room, Margaret sits in front of a silent TV, remote on the coffee table. She doesn't know it either. She only knows that every day they stay in court is another day she has to see their faces on the news. Up in the hills, the road curves the way it always has. No hazard lights, no flashing sirens, just wind in the vineyards and a sense, if you happen to pull over and stand there long enough, that the night remembers everything. Tomorrow, a judge will decide whether the word solved stays on the crawl or gets ripped off and replaced with something messier. For now, the case hangs in the air like breath on a cold window, visible and vanishing at the same time. The next morning, the courthouse feels like it's holding its breath. Reporters sense something has shifted, but they don't know what. They only know there was a closed-door meeting the night before and that no one came down the steps afterward to deliver the usual cautious sound bites. So they wait, cameras aimed at the doors like rifles, ready to shoot the moment something moves. Inside, the halls are quieter than usual. Lawyers walk in pairs, talking low. Deputies trade glances. The air smells faintly of rain-soaked jackets and institutional coffee. Everyone seems to know they're about to be told whether the last 3 weeks of testimony stand or vanish in a single decision. In chambers, the judge sits with a printout of case law spread across his desk, glasses low on his nose. Lines are underlined in red. Phrases circled: late disclosure, Brady material, mistrial discretion. He didn't sleep well. The tape played in his head every time he shut his eyes. The woman on Old Redwood Highway saying, "It doesn't look right." The boyfriend telling her to hang up, the dial tone cutting off history. He calls court to order just after 9 a.m. Hands on the rail, the gallery leans forward. The defendants stand. Mercer in his rumpled suit, Daniel in his jail-issue clothes, both of them staring at the bench like it's a cliff edge. The jury is not in the room yet. "We are here," the judge begins, voice slow and measured, "to address the motions raised regarding newly disclosed evidence. I have spent the night reviewing the timeline, the nature of the evidence, and the governing law." He looks older this morning, more human. "There is no question," he continues, "that the failure to properly log and disclose this 911 recording and associated notes represents a serious lapse. It reflects a system that, at the time, was in many ways overwhelmed and imperfect. It does not reflect well on law enforcement, and I expect internal review to address that." A murmur rustles through the crowd. "However," he says, and the word slices through the whispering, "our question today is narrower: whether this late disclosure irreparably prejudices the defendant's right to a fair trial. After careful consideration, I am denying the motions for mistrial." The defense tables stiffen. Daniel's lawyer exhales sharply through her nose. Mercer's attorney goes pale, then flushes. "The tape and notes will be admitted into evidence," the judge says. "The jury will hear them. They will also hear testimony regarding how and why they were belatedly discovered. I will instruct them on how to weigh that failure. The remedy for an incomplete record is not to hide more of the truth, but to place all of it, however messy, before the finders of fact." He turns toward the defense. "You will have full opportunity to cross-examine on this issue and to argue its implications in your closing statements, including any inferences you wish to draw about investigative competence. But we will not start this process over." Gavel. The decision is made. The word mistrial drifts out of the room and dies in the hallway before it can hit the anchor's lips. When the jury files in, they can't know exactly what just happened, but they feel it. Something in the judge's eyes, the stiffness in the lawyer's shoulders. Something heavy is coming. The prosecution calls its next witness, a gray-haired man in a worn blazer, hands clasped too tightly in front of him. They swear him in. "State your name for the record," the DA says. "Mark Hensley," he answers. "Retired homicide detective, Sonoma County Sheriff's Department." She walks him through his history with the case, his role in the original investigation, his later cold case review. Then she sets the new ground. "Detective Hensley, did you recently discover a piece of evidence related to the Walsh case that had not previously been in the official file?" "Yes," he says, voice catching. "In a box in my garage." He tells them about the notebooks, about the tape, about Christmas decorations and cardboard, and 2 decades of looking the other way every time he moved that box from one shelf to another. "Why didn't you log the 911 call and note in 1998? The DA asks. He looks down. The courtroom holds still. "We were getting calls constantly. Tips, sightings, people wanting to feel useful. I drove the highway. I told myself if something terrible had happened, we'd have found signs by the time the car turned up. I let myself believe that call was just a couple arguing. I was wrong. And then the case went cold, and by the time I realized how wrong, it felt too late. I kept the tape because throwing it out felt like admitting I'd failed her, which I had. On the playback screen, the jury hears the woman's voice. The partial plate, the fear, the boyfriend's impatience, then the abrupt end. So there was, the DA says quietly, a chance to get there while Ms. Walsh was still alive. Yes, Hensley answers. His eyes sheen. There was a chance, and we missed it. On cross-examination, the defense teams come with knives out. Mercer's lawyer steps up first. Detective Hensley, would you agree that your failure to properly handle this call is catastrophic? Yes, he says. And would you also agree that, had this call been acted on differently, my client might never have been in this courtroom today? He hesitates. If we'd gotten there in time, none of us might be here today, he says. Including you. And you expect this jury, the lawyer presses, to trust an investigation where key evidence sat in your garage. No, Hensley answers. I expect them to trust the evidence itself, not the way we handled it. If my failure keeps them awake at night, I'll live with that. I already do. The admission lands with an odd weight. Ugly, but true. Imperfection laid bare under oath. After Hensley steps down, the judge instructs the jury clearly, the tape is real evidence. Its mishandling goes to credibility, not to whether the events it captures did or did not occur. They must decide what it means, not pretend they never heard it. At lunch, the courthouse lawn buzzes. Did you hear that call? Someone says by the food truck. They could have gotten there. 20 minutes. Typical, another mutters. They say the case is solved now, but they had the solution halfway dialed in 98 and let it go to voicemail. A true crime blogger films a piece to camera under a tree, traffic humming behind him. This is why people don't trust the system, he says. It's not just the monsters. It's the missteps. The oops, I forgot to file this life or death tape. You can DNA your way out of a cold case in 2020, but the ghost of 1998 is still sitting in the dispatch room. In a small cafe a few blocks away, Margaret Walsh sits with a coffee gone cold. The barista has turned the TV volume down out of respect, but the captions still crawl across the bottom. Retired detective. We missed our chance to save her. She stares at that sentence until the letters swim. Laura finds her there, sliding into the opposite seat without ordering anything. I heard about the tape, Margaret says, voice flat. Everybody did. They're replaying it like a song. Laura nods. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way. Will it help? Margaret asks. Will it change what happens to them? Laura considers. It might. Or it might just show that there were more people in this story who failed you. Margaret lifts her eyes, and for the first time, the anger isn't aimed outward. How did you stay, she asks. In this job, knowing that call was out there, that she might have been waiting. Because I didn't know, Laura says honestly. Not until yesterday. And because somebody has to stand in the middle of all this and still believe it's worth trying. Is it? Margaret whispers. Laura doesn't answer for a long moment. It's worth it for her, she says at last. Even if we keep proving how much we don't deserve forgiveness. Afternoon brings closing arguments. The prosecutor rises first. She walks slowly before the jury, pausing by the photographs, the diagrams, the screen that showed lungs full of soil, and the dusty walls of a cabin shrine. 23 years ago, she begins, this county failed a young woman twice. First on a dark roadside, when the people she knew didn't see her no, as the final word it was. Then in our own dispatch room, when a stranger did the right thing and we didn't do enough with it. She lets that hang. But two failures do not erase what happened in that clearing, she continues. Two men, both older than her, both in positions of power over her. One as landlord, one as a trusted friend, chose their fear and desire and reputation over her life. They tell you they thought she was dead. Our doctor tells you she wasn't. Soil in her lungs is her last testimony. It says, I was still here. I was still breathing, and they covered me anyway. She moves her hand from Daniel to Mercer and back. Don't let the word panic make what happened sound smaller than it was. Panic doesn't dig a grave. Panic doesn't tape missing posters to a cabin wall and drive across state lines under another name. Panic doesn't stay quiet for 23 years and only talk when science knocks on the door. She lowers her voice. You may feel anger at the police in 1998. You may feel frustration at every missed chance. You're allowed to. But your duty is not to fix the past. Your duty is to answer one question. When these men had the last opportunity anyone had to save her, what did they do? The law calls that answer murder. She sits. The room exhales. Then Daniel's lawyer stands. She does not walk the room. She stands close to the jury, hands loosely clasped, eyes tired. You've heard a lot of words, she starts softly. Murder, panic, failure. You've seen photographs that will stick in your mind longer than any of us wish. None of that changes the fact that a young woman is gone. Nothing you do can bring her back. What you can do is decide what label we put on the fear and cowardice of a 27-year-old man who didn't lay a hand on her in anger that night, but who made unforgivable choices after she fell. She doesn't pretend Daniel is blameless. She doesn't try to polish him. I'm not asking you to like him, she says. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to see the difference between the man who stalked her, wrote her letters, followed her into the night, and the man whose worst crime was believing that man when he said, "They'll blame you." She points gently towards Mercer. If Mr. Cross had called an ambulance, maybe she'd be alive. If the 911 call had been handled differently, maybe she'd be alive. There is more than one if in this story. But the law you must apply today is not about all the ifs. It's about intent and knowledge. Did Daniel Cross intend for her to die? Did he know she was still alive when he walked away? She shakes her head, voice thinning. The state wants you to be so angry at the outcome that you erase the distinction. Don't. You can hold him accountable without pretending he is the architect of every bad choice that night. Finally, Mercer's lawyer steps up. His tone is sharper, his eyes flint. You've been told a story, he says. It's a compelling one. 2 men, 1 grave, a long wait for justice. It fits easily into a headline. California 1998 cold case solved. But in this room, we don't judge headlines. We judge reasonable doubt. He hammers at the tape's late arrival, the decades-old memories, the anonymous call that could describe any roadside fight. You are being asked to trust an investigation that literally left evidence in a garage, he says. You are being asked to bridge every gap in the state's story with your anger. You are being asked to take the most monstrous interpretation of every action and to stamp it solved, so this town can sleep at night. He leans in closer. You don't have to like my client. You probably don't. But disliking a man and proving that, in that exact moment, beyond a reasonable doubt, he knew she was still alive and decided to bury her anyway are not the same thing. If you can't make that leap without your stomach tightening, that's doubt. And the law tells you what to do with doubt. When he sits, the light in the courtroom has shifted. Late afternoon pours through high windows, dust motes turning in its beams like slow snow. The judge reads instructions. Words about intent, knowledge, accomplice liability. About the difference between murder and manslaughter. About how to treat belated evidence. His voice is steady. The jurors scribble notes. Then the bailiff swears them, takes their phones, leads them into the deliberation room. The door closes with a soft, final click. Outside, the media calls it the moment of truth. The crawl at the bottom of the broadcast already has a blank space waiting. Verdict, guilty or verdict, not guilty. Solved or not solved. In the hallway, Laura stands with her back against the wall, eyes closed. In another part of the building, Daniel sits in a small holding cell, counting his breaths. In another, Mercer stares at the ceiling, lips moving like he's having a conversation no one else can hear. In a quiet house across town, Margaret lights a single candle by Lena's photograph and says nothing at all. The jury talks. They argue. They pace. They write on whiteboards. They erase. Hours stretch. Night falls. The courthouse staff turns lights off one by one, leaving only the glow of the deliberation room and the exit signs like small red warnings in the dark. Somewhere on Old Redwood Highway, cars pass the spot where hazard lights once blinked in the rain. No one sees anything unusual. But if you stop, if you crack the window and listen past the wind and the distant hum of tires, it feels, for just a second, like the night is listening back, waiting to hear what 12 strangers will decide about something that happened there 23 years ago and has never really stopped happening since. The first thing that breaks the silence in the deliberation room is a chair scraping back too hard. 12 people have been sitting around a rectangular table for almost 3 hours, the weight of 23 years pressing down on cheap wood and stale coffee. The blinds are half closed, turning daylight into thin stripes. On the walls hang generic prints of vineyards and hills, as if the room is trying to remind them of the world outside, of something softer than autopsy photos and cassette tapes. They've taken an initial vote. Secret, quick, a gut check. It wasn't unanimous. Not even close. For Mercer, most ballots read guilty of second-degree murder. One holds out for first, one for manslaughter. For Daniel, the papers scatter in every direction. Some for murder, some for manslaughter, some for "I don't know yet" scrawled where there should only be a mark. Now they circle back. A retired school principal, Juror 3, taps a pen against the legal pad in front of him. "We have to separate how we feel from what's proven," he says. That's what the judge said. Feelings here, he taps his chest, evidence here. A younger man in a hoodie and ironed jeans, Juror 9, shakes his head. Evidence is she was breathing, he says. Evidence is they buried her anyway. What else do you call that but murder? An older woman at the end of the table, Juror 1, lifts the instructions, the thin stack of typed pages the judge read in that slow, careful voice. "It's about what they knew," she says. "Did they know she was still alive? I don't have any reason to think Mercer didn't. The way he talked on that tape, you can't bury something that never stopped breathing. He knew exactly what he did. But I keep going back to his face when the doctor said soil in the lungs. I don't think he knew then. I think he found out with us." Juror 9 snorts. "So we reward him for not listening? For not wanting to know? Come on. He's not on trial for cowardice," the principal says. "He's on trial for murder. Cowardice can kill you just as much as hate," Juror 9 fires back. They argue over what intent looks like in a clearing at night, with rain coming down and adrenaline high and a man like Mercer saying, "They'll blame you." Over whether saying, "I thought she was dead," is truth or self-preservation. Over how much weight to give to a 911 call that never got a patrol car sent in time. They ask for transcripts. For the autopsy testimony again. For the tape. In the courtroom, the judge puts the cassette playback on through the speakers once more. Everyone listens to Mercer's voice echo in the empty seats. "You think you can solve it now? You can't, because she's still out there. And so am I." In the deliberation room, they listen to his words and to the pathologist's description of soil and lungs. They underline sentences. They pace. At some point, someone cries, quick and embarrassed, wiping their face with the back of their hand. Juror 7, a nurse, speaks up. "I've been in the room when people slip away," she says. "You can tell. There's a difference between 'I don't feel a breath' and 'she's gone.'" He said he put his ear to her mouth. No pulse. No breath. It was dark, chaotic. If a doctor can miss a fading pulse, so can a scared kid in the woods. "I believe he thought she was dead. I don't forgive what he did next, but I believe him." "What he did next is the crime," Juror 9 insists. "The doctor said it herself. The burying is what killed her. If he's part of that, he's part of murder. We have degrees for a reason," the principal says quietly. "We don't just have one box labeled evil." Hours pass. Lunch comes in styrofoam containers. Food gets cold. Coffee gets reheated. They take another vote, this time only on Mercer. The ballots come back almost all the same. Murder. Second degree. Not planned in advance, but no accident. Intent stitched into every choice he made, from the letters to the roadside to the shovel. One juror hesitates, then crosses out manslaughter and writes murder too. "Okay," Juror 1 says, exhaling. "What about Cross?" The room stills, as if that name has its own gravity. They talk about the handwritten letters, Mercer's, not his. They talk about who followed her that night, Mercer, not him. They talk about who drove the truck, Mercer. Who wrote his name under a new identity and built a shrine, Mercer. Then they talk about who carried her, who helped dig, who walked away. Accessory after the fact is an option, the nurse says, pointing to the instructions. So is voluntary manslaughter. The judge said we can find him guilty of a lesser included offense if the evidence fits. "What about the label?" a younger woman asks. "If we say murder for one and manslaughter for the other, do we sound like we're saying one life is more important?" "We're not weighing lives," Juror 3 answers. "We're weighing knowledge." Mercer stalked her. Cross loved her badly. One chased her into the dark. One followed because he couldn't let her go. They ended up in the same grave. That doesn't make them the same person. Another vote. This time for Daniel. When they unfold their slips, the pattern is clearer. Not guilty of murder. Guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Guilty of being an accessory after the fact to Mercer's murder. It's not unanimous right away, but the ones holding onto the murder count feel their anger sitting heavier on their tongues than the words in the instructions. They think of their own worst choices, of fear, of times they froze when they should have moved. They think of the difference between a man who hunted and a man who flinched. In the end, they line up behind what they can all sleep with. When the bailiff knocks, the room feels smaller. They have verdict forms now, ink on paper that will decide how history writes this night. The bailiff collects the envelopes, face neutral. The jurors stand. Some whisper a brief prayer in their heads. Some think only of getting out of this building and breathing air that doesn't smell like old paper. In the hallway, word spreads fast. There's a verdict. Reporters snap to attention. Cameras swing toward the courtroom doors like compass needles finding north. Laura hears it from halfway down the hall. She quickens her pace, heart picking up, that particular mix of dread and duty. In the front row of the gallery, Margaret Walsh sits with her hands wrapped around each other, so tightly her knuckles look carved from stone. When the clerk says, "All rise," she does, feeling the weight of every year. Daniel is brought in. Mercer too. They stand side by side, yet impossibly far apart. For one, the verdict will confirm what everyone already believes. For the other, it might tilt him slightly away from the image of the monster the headlines painted. The judge takes the bench. His robe hangs heavy. His eyes scan the room, resting for a heartbeat on Margaret, on Laura, on the two men, on the jury. "Madam Foreperson," he says, "has the jury reached verdicts on all counts?" A woman in her 50s, juror 1, rises, verdict forms in hand. "We have, Your Honor." Please hand them to the bailiff. Paper shuffles. The courtroom sounds narrow to small clicks and rustles. Outside, through thick windows, a siren wails somewhere far away. The judge glances over the forms, then nods. "You may read." The foreperson's voice trembles only once. Then it steadies. In the matter of the People versus Boyd Allen Mercer, on the charge of murder in the second degree of Lena Walsh, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. The word lands like a stone dropped in water. Ripples move through the room. Gasps, a muffled sob, a sudden intake of breath from the press benches. Mercer's jaw tightens. For a moment, something flickers in his eyes, like a calculation abandoned. Then he exhales slowly, as if he'd been holding on to the possibility of a different future and has just watched it slip away. The foreperson continues. In the matter of the People versus Daniel Michael Cross, on the charge of murder in the second degree of Lena Walsh, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. A different ripple. Daniel flinches as if slapped. For 1 second, Margaret hears the phrase, "not guilty," and feels her stomach twist. Then the foreperson goes on. On the lesser included charge of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Lena Walsh, we find the defendant guilty. Daniel's shoulders sag. His eyes close. It's not freedom. It's not an absolution. It's a name for what he did that isn't the word the headlines pinned on him, but it's still a word that will follow him for the rest of his life. And on the charge of accessory after the fact to the murder of Lena Walsh, we find the defendant guilty. The judge nods once, solemn. Does either side request that the jury be polled, he asks. Mercer's lawyer hesitates, then shakes his head. Daniel's attorney does the same. The verdicts stand. The jurors are thanked, discharged with the usual instructions. Some look relieved. Some look wrecked. One wipes a tear quickly with a sleeve. When they finally leave the building, they will walk past cameras that want their faces, their names, their sound bites. Most will shake their heads and keep moving. The story they've been part of doesn't belong to them anymore. It belongs to everyone with a screen and an opinion. Inside, the judge sets a date for sentencing. Pre-sentence reports, victim impact statements, arguments about years in eligibility and parole. Bail is revoked, he says for Mercer. For Daniel, who has already been in custody, nothing changes. They both remain in orange and gray and concrete until the state decides exactly how many years their choices cost. Court adjourns. The gavel cracks like a final nail. Mercer turns once toward the gallery as deputies take his arms. His eyes sweep over the faces, looking for something. Maybe anger, maybe understanding, maybe nothing at all. When he passes Margaret, he slows. "I'm sorry," he says softly. It isn't loud enough for the microphones. Only she and the nearest deputy hear it. She looks at him the way someone looks at a photograph they are about to burn. "No," she replies. "You're guilty." That's not the same thing. The deputies move him on. Daniel doesn't speak. He glances once at Laura. She nods. Neither sympathy nor condemnation. Just a small acknowledgement that his part of the silence has a name now, too. Outside, the headline updates. California 1998 cold case solved. Landlord convicted of murder. Victim's friend found guilty of manslaughter. News anchors say the verdict brings closure. Pundits debate whether the sentences should be harsher, softer, different. True crime shows start rewriting their scripts to add a final chapter. Podcasts record emergency verdict reactions, episodes. Comment sections fill up with words like monster and coward and justice, and finally. In the parking lot, away from the cameras, Laura leans against her car and looks up at the sky. It's the same pale California blue it was in the photos from 1998, just a little hazier, a little more used. Hensley appears beside her, hands in his pockets. "Well," he says quietly. "They called it." "They called something," she answers. "You don't think it's justice?" She thinks of the tape in his garage, of the anonymous caller on the highway, of the way soil looks under a microscope when it's inside lungs it never should have reached. "I think it's the closest thing we get in this world," she says. "A label on a long line of bad choices. It's better than an empty file drawer." He nods, then stares at his shoes. "You know what they're saying on TV? Cold case solved. Like it's done. Like she can rest now." "She's been resting," Laura says. "We're the ones who keep pacing." Later that night, Margaret sits at her kitchen table with the sentencing date circled on a calendar she almost didn't buy this year. The house is quiet. The television is off. Her phone buzzes with messages. "We're so relieved for you. Justice at last. How do you feel?" But she doesn't answer. She takes out a blank piece of paper instead. At the top, in steady handwriting, she writes, "For the court." Below that, she starts to write the words she'll speak at sentencing. Not legal words. Not words about evidence and degrees and intent. Words about a girl who painted faces, who loved rain on the window and loud 90s songs and cheap coffee. Words about grief that doesn't vanish just because a jury has filled in the boxes on a form. On Old Redwood Highway, another night slides by. Headlights sweep past the spot where a white sedan once blinked for help. Drivers don't slow down. They don't need to. There's nothing visible there now. But in the official record, something has changed. A line that once read unsolved now has names, dates, counts, convictions. The system has done what it can, pinned down chaos, given it case numbers and penal codes, and a final stamp. Solved. The word still feels too clean for what actually happened. Too small for the way this story lingers in the air, in the hills, in the lives of everyone who touched it. The verdict is in. The echoes are just getting started.